Hello, and thank you for joining us today to talk about tackling the problem that is plastic pollution. My name is Laura, and I lead the Ocean-Wise Plastic Initiative. I would like to start today by recognizing that I am joining you from the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations in North Vancouver. I invite you to share in the question and answer section where you are joining us from today. So first and foremost, setting the scene. We are all ocean people. We all depend on the ocean for the air we breathe, the food we eat, to support livelihoods, our economies, and for our well-being. And yet, the ocean is under threat from our plastic pollution. We know plastic has infiltrated almost every aspect of our lives, at home, at work, and at play. And you'll know that especially if you've done the plastic reduction audit with us. But our plastic waste is causing untold damage to the ocean and ecosystems we depend on. Scientists have found plastic almost everywhere they have looked, from the ocean floor to our shorelines, from the digestive systems of plankton to beluga whales, and from tropical shores to Arctic seas. We are running out of time to prevent irreversible damage, and yet our plastic use and production continues to grow. Today marks Earth Overshoot Day, when humanity's demand for resources exceeds what the Earth can regenerate. Sustainability and conservation is no longer about protecting the natural world for the next generation. We need to take radical action now to allow the oceans to recover and continue to support this, our generation. But there is hope. Research shows that given the opportunity, the ocean's ecosystems can and do regenerate. There are actions we can all take to turn the tide on plastic pollution. We are all part of the current problematic system, and we all have a part to play in changing that system for the better. There is no one solution, no one individual, organization, business, or government that can solve this alone. We hear all too often about recycling as part of the solution. And yes, it is. But today we want to focus on reuse, repair, and redesign, as this is where the conversation should start in order to tackle this problem at its source. And it's for this reason that we've invited some of our partners who are leading the way to share more about their journey as they seek to radically reduce unnecessary plastic use and waste in their businesses and for their consumers. I'll start by introducing Becky Brauer from Fresh Prep. She's the CEO and co-founder of Fresh Prep, and as CEO, she leads product development and growth. What started off as developing recipes in her kitchen at home and a passion for cooking has now expanded into 10 recipe options a week, delivered to thousands of customers across the Greater Vancouver area, Vancouver Island, and the Okanagan. From Labatt, we have Mike Bascom. He is the Senior Director of Marketing for Labatt Breweries Canada. He has been with Labatt for over 15 years and is responsible for high growth above core portfolio, including international brands such as Corona and Stella Artois, the craft portfolio, and the core plus brands. Mike is an experienced leader with a proven track record of consistently delivering stretch business results. His extensive multifunctional experience with expertise in consumer and customer marketing, sales management, strategic planning, change management, and people management makes him an essential member of the Labatt team. Mike graduated from Queen's University with a Bachelor of Honours and holds an advanced marketing degree from Northwestern University, Kellogg School of Management. And last but by no means least, we have Sophie Merritt. She's a sustainability leader from MEC who is happiest hunting for waves to surf or powder to ski. An advocate for human rights and climate change action within the outdoor industry, she is someone who is always humbled by nature. Thank you ever so much, Becky, Mike, and Sophie for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I'm going to try my best to keep asking questions in that order. But for me and for us at Ocean-Wise, conservation really is personal. And as I mentioned, it now really is the time we need to take action. We cannot hang about. But on a personal note, I'd like to first go to Becky and ask you, what is your connection to tackling the problem of plastic pollution and why it matters to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, oh, hang on. Seem to be unmuting. There we go. Hopefully you can hear me. So it's personal to me, I think, because you know, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in beautiful Vancouver, and I think growing up here, you have you're so connected with nature because a lot of the activities that we spend our time doing are outdoor, and you're part of this beautiful environment. You really become sort of a steward for it. And when you start hearing about all of the issues with plastic pollution, and not only hearing about it, but seeing the plastic waste that washes up on our shorelines, and you know, the impact that it's actually having to our home and this land that we're so connected with and we love so much, it couldn't help but be a personal issue for me. So, you know, that's why when we started our business, we really knew that we wanted to create a meal kit and create a mealtime solution that was as sustainable as it possibly could be, which is sort of landed us where we are today with launching the first zero waste meal kit in the industry.
Thank you, Becky. And yeah, I think for a number of people, as you mentioned, plastic really is personal. We do see it where we live, where we work, and where we play, and there is no escaping the damage that we're doing to the environment. Mike, what makes plastic pollution personal for you?
I think for me, well, first, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be part of this panel today, and I think discussions like this are amazing because they, you know, spark the conversation and drive awareness of this problem. So we all need to continue to do this and continue to talk. And every time I'm participating in things like this, I learn probably way more than what I'm giving. So thank you for that. But I would start by saying, you know, I was guilty, probably still am guilty, but was certainly guilty of one who believed that I wasn't part of the problem, and that the problem wasn't going to impact me. I live in Toronto. Sorry, all you West Coasters. I love the West Coast more as much as anything. My heart's there. I was saying earlier, but I was, you know, I thought this wasn't a problem that impacted us, and I learned as we started to work on this project through Labatt and through the Corona brand, how actually it was impacting every single one of us on this earth, and how every single one of us were contributing to the problem. I'm lucky enough to grow up on the shores of the Great Lakes up in Georgian Bay. And until I started talking about this problem, I never really looked around to even see if there was an issue up there. Last weekend, I was up with my two young kids on the beach a couple of times throughout the weekend. And every single time I went to that beach, I was picking up new pieces of small plastic. This is inland lakes in the middle of our country. That plastic is then going to end up in waterways. That's going to end up in the ocean. So it's something that impacts us all, and we all know that regardless of where you are, we're contributing far too much plastic into the environment. So it's something that has become a big issue that we all know of now, and me personally too.
I really appreciate you sharing that story. Thank you, Mike. I think that is one of the things that we often forget. It doesn't matter whether you're landlocked or not, all waterways lead to the ocean. All of our urban drains, ultimately, somehow, all of our washing machine laundry, it all ends up eventually that water going back to the ocean. Sophie, I'm going to throw the same question over to you. What keeps you in the fight for plastic pollution? Or the fight against it, I should say.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. Happy to be here. So for me, I've really seen, I'm a West Coast girl myself, and I've seen this increase in plastics all over our shores in the natural places that I love. And it's kind of funny, as a child, my parents called me a water baby or part mermaid, because I spent all day in the water enjoying and exploring nature, and it's where the love for the ocean came from. And I truly think that the ocean brings me so much peace and gratitude and just level-headedness. And as I grow up, I'm visiting those same places that I spent all day in, and they aren't looking the same. I am seeing the impact, and and right in my face. Like, I can't ignore what I'm seeing. And I think I look back as I grew up, I was really, my parents were, you know, young adults in their 20s raising kids, and it was all about convenience, like the wrapped granola bar and the Ziploc bags and the, you know, like whatever they could do to survive taking care of us. And so I feel like my plastics quota as a person is personally used up. Like I've overflown that quota, and it's enough, and I need to shut it down. So for me, I think I also see it as plastic waste is, in a lot of cases in the day-to-day, is about being prepared. And a lot of it is unnecessary. I think there's a lot of switches that we can do that actually, you know, accumulate to a big impact. I think sometimes people think it's one cup or it's one bag or whatever, but it's not, because every person, there's 7 billion people that are making that same decision, right? And so for me, it became like, it matters to me because I do have the ability to influence both myself, my family, my friends, and beyond, right? Now taking that into my career. I think there's just a huge opportunity from a repair, reuse, even recycling perspective in apparel, that is critical to reducing our environmental impact. And I think we have enough stuff, you know, we have enough stuff in circulation. I don't need any more things, like get rid of my things. It's about finding a way to use these products again in new ways, right? And I think that's the message. That's why it matters to me, is it's both like a environmental problem, but it's also a business conversation as well. There's a huge amount of money and opportunity in this quote unquote stuff. And if I can, it's a hill I'm going to die on 100%. And I really believe that, like, that's where the passion was born. And I see that there's this huge opportunity from there for it.
I wholeheartedly agree with every point you've made there, Sophie. I think from the simple switches to you speaking about individual abilities to influence our own networks, our own family, in our own organizations. You don't have to work in sustainability to influence change in your organization. And you mentioned and you touched upon repair, reuse, and recycling in the apparel industry. So I'd love to stay with you and explore with you more the success stories that you're seeing in your organization and how you're embracing a more circular approach to product systems and services.
Cool. Yeah, I can talk to that. So two things that come to mind quite quickly. One is our sushi roll packaging. So essentially, when apparel comes from a factory, it's normally wrapped in a single-use poly bag. So think of every piece of clothing in the world that is being sold is coming in a single-use plastic bag. And then all those items are getting boxed into one big bag, and then you're taking this giant poly bag and wrapping them all up and sending it off. So think about, that's millions of bags just at MEC in a year. And MEC is not a big, like, you know, in Canada we have a big brand recognition, but in the scheme of like the H&Ms and the Zara's, and, you know, we are a speck. And so what we did is we've said, okay, can we actually roll garments instead and put a teeny tie and then master polybag them so that it, you know, from a damage perspective, from a water, you know, it's being shipped across the sea, so there needs to be some safety there. And yeah, the action of doing one master polybag has eliminated millions of single-use plastic bags per year. And we've actually taken that lesson. I cannot count how many brands have reached out to us and been like, how are you doing this? How are you ensuring that there's no wrinkles? How are you ensuring that that there isn't damage, and that there's, because you have to think about the entire life cycle of a product. If the product shows up and it's got so many wrinkles that it can't be put on a floor, then it has to be steamed or ironed, and there's an environmental footprint of that, right? So you have to, it's not just like, oh, let's eliminate plastic. We have to do it in a way that actually makes sense, both from a waste and a carbon perspective. But we've had so many brands reach out, and now they're doing it that way too. So, a small but mighty team has a big influence. So that's one example. I think the other is waste diversion. So in our stores, our distribution centers, and in our head office, cumulatively, we have a 92% waste diversion. And some big things that we've done through that are like dumpster dives, waste audits, to understand problematic streams that we're dealing with, and work to find solutions for those items. So if you think about it, we are taking back everything from our members. We're responsible for the product's end of life for our members. So we need to find reuse and repair options for these products. Things that come to mind, I was, when I first started, when I finished my master's and I was new in this field, I worked on hard to recycle items, and what can we do? Can we reuse? Can we repair? And for silica packs, for example, they are like the moisture pieces, what have you. There was no recycling stream. It was really complicated. There's health, all sorts of risks. We don't want them ending up in a landfill. So we actually said there's a huge use for these for camping and for gear bags, from a moisture prevention piece, so like storage and everything. So I ended up doing like a 50 ways you can reuse your silica pack. And we would put the bucket of silica packs by the cache at MEC across all stores. And then people would be like, you're waiting to pay and what have you, and they're just, mindlessly reading things, and they read this and they're like, oh, I can take these and bring them on my camping trip? It's like, yeah, please do. And I'd recommend you put them with your meal, your food prep, and your first aid kit, so that your tape doesn't go funny, and all these kinds of things. And then we had so many members using this. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Like if you take that extra second, or dig a little bit deeper into the research, there's so many different options for so many different items. So those are two that really stand out. And then a big part of the conversation is also product. And for us, that's designing so we're looking at, how did our products fail in the past? And we are designing to eliminate those things. So if it's like a zipper was, breaking, or a snap wasn't working, how do we embed that back? And then also with more sustainable materials. So how are we using circular practices? How are we, using recycled polyesters and recycled materials to decrease our footprint, but also keep other raw materials still in the cycle, essentially. So those are the ones that come to mind for me, Laura.
Oh, thank you so much. And like Sophie, music to my ears when you talk about dumpster dives and waste audits. That's one of the things that I'm very, very passionate about, because I think what gets measured gets done. It's not always an easy task to start with, but honestly, I working with a lot of our restaurant partners, and I know Becky's team can speak to this as well. But once you start looking at it, it's amazing what you find. And as you say, you spend those few extra seconds, and it's amazing then the solutions that your team can innovate and come up with. I'm going to reverse the order and throw it back to Mike and ask Mike to share a little bit about some of the success stories that you and your team have been working on recently, and how you're moving to that more circular system.
For sure. Thank you. Yeah. So I think first I'll start by saying I'm fortunate enough to work in an industry where circular packaging and sustainable packaging has been a focus for a number of years. The vast majority of beer bottles in this country are returned. We have an incredible infrastructure network to recover the bottles, bring them back into our breweries, wash them, and then reuse them. So, on average, a beer bottle goes out into consumers' hands around 10 times. So we have that infrastructure has been in place for a number of years. So it's a start. It's a start. The challenge is that consumer preferences are changing, and so people are drinking beer out of bottles not as often as they were, and they're drinking cans a lot. Now we're using Corona. Corona is the brand that is leading the way and leading the charge in terms of helping to solve some of the problems and test out new innovations to overcome some of the challenges that we face. So right now, as a category, the most plastic that we're contributing into the environment, it comes through two places. One is secondary packaging on 6-packs of cans. So you think about 6-pack rings, we've all seen the horrible pictures of what 6-pack rings can do. There's also shrink wrap, and then tertiary packaging, wrapping pallets as they're shipped across the country. So Corona has been working over the last number of years to figure out first the biggest contributor of secondary packaging and removing that. So in 2018, we removed all plastic from our secondary packaging on Corona in the country. So all of our cans go out in box board now. That it's better. There's still packaging, but it's certainly better than plastic. So we've been testing out different ways of doing that, and leading the way, and look to follow with other brands within the portfolio soon. So it's a good start. We're also working on different materials, raw materials, to contribute into what that box board and packaging looks like. And actually this year, for the first time, we piloted a program where we take barley straw. So those who know about beer, one of the main ingredients in beer is it's barley, hops, water, and yeast primarily. That's pretty much it. But barley, we use the pods, but the straw that you see growing in fields typically gets discarded. So we've worked with suppliers to figure out a way to transition and turn that straw into actual paperboard that we can then create packaging out of. So we're working on ways to scale that as well. We've successfully piloted, show that it can be done, feasibility is there. And now we look to continue to roll that out and continue to do more things like that. So again, it's this start. We've got, I think, a long way to go. All industries do, but we're making some good traction.
That's fantastic, and I love the flip as using waste as a resource. But I'm gonna dig in a little bit further, Mike, and just ask,
Please.
With pilot projects like that, what are some of the major sort of challenges that you've experienced, and what are the key takeaways you've had so far?
I mean, there's no question it costs more to make some of these changes, right? So I think it's important, critical for us to get stakeholder alignment and understanding around, making the decision is going to have an impact on costs of our business. But it's no longer an issue. I think now, as a company, we very much understand that we can't be thinking about just the cost today. We need to be thinking about the cost tomorrow. And if we are going to be here for the next 100, 500 years, we better start making some of those decisions now and spending a little bit more money now to pave the way so that we are successful in the future. So I would say, a few years ago when we started on the journey, may have faced some more challenges, but now it's something that's widely accepted in Canada and around the world at all levels within the organization. So we actually face far fewer hurdles than you would imagine internally when it comes to this. So it's really ideation, creativity, scalability are critical, but internal stakeholder buy-in is there very, very much so.
That's incredibly inspiring and very, very nice to hear. Thank you for sharing, Mike. Becky, you've been waiting patiently. I'm going to throw it out to you. I would love to hear more about your journey at Fresh Prep and the success story as you've been normalizing reuse, for example. So please do share more about your approach.
Yes, I would love to. So I guess I can start off here by saying food is a very unique, industry and challenging industry when it comes to plastic use. When we started Fresh Prep, we really knew that, first of all, it's not only packaging, but it was food waste that was a huge issue that we were trying to tackle. And one of the great things, obviously, about meal kits is that, you're delivered only the ingredients that you're going to eat for that meal every week. And at the end of the week, there's nothing to throw out. So we were really focused on, meal kits being a really great solution for food waste. But as we got into it, we realized, And we started off with this really, what I like to say always is like a pretty cocky idea of like, well, we're not going to have to use plastic. Like that's just a thing people do because it's cheap, right? But what ended up happening was we started, we prep our ingredients. So everything arrives to our consumers sort of like pre-chopped and ready to cook, which means that there's an enhanced shelf life on that. As soon as you cut a potato or dice a potato, it's going to go bad a lot faster than a potato that's in its intact form, right? So that's really where we started experimenting and saying like, all right, well, we're going to use, let's say like wax paper as an alternative to like packaging a diced potato in a plastic bag. But we quickly found out that some of those solutions that we were thinking about packaging in paper or more biodegradable options really weren't delivering the shelf life that we wanted with our food product, therefore contributing to food waste. So it was kind of like this catch-22 that we were in. We're like, okay, we don't want to put everything in plastic. We know that's a problem, but at the same time, if we don't, our food's not really protected and we're creating all this food waste, right? We need to be able to preserve our product and deliver it healthy in a healthy and safe way to our customers. So that's really where the idea came up for this reusable packaging solution, because realistically, that's the only way that we could think of that we could protect the food, ensure that we weren't creating more food waste, and move forward in the most sustainable way possible. So we actually had to overhaul our entire production system. We had to completely design a custom packaging solution for our product, which that in and of itself was really no easy feat. We have, if you're familiar with a meal kit service, I mean, we have a menu that has 10 items on it that rotate every single week. So we're not designing a solution like a packaging solution to fit 1 or 2 SKUs. Like we're designing a packaging solution to fit thousands of different recipes, which was really, really, really challenging. Hence why this project took us about 3 years from when we started working on it to actually get it to market. And that wasn't the only challenge. It wasn't just designing the packaging solution. It was like, how do we overhaul our entire production system now to work with this reusable packaging system? And we ended up having to create automation and custom machinery and everything to actually produce the meal kits every week as well. So tons of challenges in there, but when we think about sort of like where we started out and like, you know, we had this unique opportunity because we were a subscription service to really leverage the fact that we had some sort of like circularity in place. We were visiting the door of our customer every single week. We had this opportunity to collect back either plastic packaging, cooler bags, or at the end of the day, this reusable packaging that we were really like, you know, for us, this is a no-brainer. It's what our customers want. We know it's a huge, huge barrier for people to even try a meal kit because of all the packaging waste. We were hearing that from day one. So we really just saw it as an opportunity and decided to run with it.
That's incredible. And I love what you were saying about this being in your DNA from the get-go. And I hearing from all of you today the challenges of balancing competing priorities, from quality to reducing food waste to reducing damages to ensuring that the product and the system and service is delivering the quality that's expected of your brands to the consumer. Becky, if I could stay with you, I'm really curious. So you've got this fantastic new reusable packaging. What is next for Fresh Prep? Oh, you're still on mute. Forgive me.
Me and mute unmute today. Okay, are we good now? There's this lag when I'm muting, unmuting. Apologies. I'm so excited you asked this question. I mean, really what our goal was when we started out was to be able to bring sustainable, convenient, sustainable solutions to a, it's still saying my mic is muted actually. Can you guys hear me? You're good. Okay, interesting. So we really wanted to bring convenient and sustainable solutions to a mass audience, right? So for us, it's always been about how can we get meal kits in the hands of as many people as possible to create the most impact, you know, on these large issues like food waste and like packaging plastic packaging waste. So for us on the horizon, it's about how do we get to more cities? How do we deliver the solution to more folks? Because that's really how we're going to get the most impact of all of the work that we've done over this past 3 years, is getting these solutions into the hands of as many people as possible. I think it's what we always talk about as well is, it's great to try to, and by no means should we stop putting this idea forth of reducing your plastic consumption and changing your behavior and being conscious about what you're consuming. But at the same time, we really believe that it's the responsibility of businesses to make it more convenient for their customers to live more sustainably and to really think about the design of their products and how they're delivering those products to the market to ensure that people can participate and live a more sustainable life in a convenient way. So yeah, that's what it's about for us. We're just really looking forward to expanding into new markets and getting the zero waste kit in the hands of as many people as possible.
I like that, and I really appreciate the convenience piece. And from an ocean waste point of view, I'm always going to be saying that we should be looking to reduce our footprint as individuals. But I hear you completely. With businesses thinking that way as well, it can only be a good thing when we're all swimming in the same direction. We're all trying to reduce plastic use and waste. Okay. Mike, I'm going to throw it back to you. You talked about the incredible work that you've done in reducing secondary and tertiary packaging, particularly with Corona, as well as a pilot program looking into reusing the straw from barley. But what else have you got going on? What's next for you, and what are the challenges that lay ahead?
I think, and for us, we're always constantly working to innovate and figure out ways to reduce plastic in our packaging. So we're working on actually installing a new technology later on this year to help us do that further. So some more information will come on that one. But the biggest, I think the biggest piece is it's working with our partners. And so across the board, we are in some ways, we're still restricted and handcuffed in terms of how we actually deliver our products and our packaging to some of our customers who sell to consumers. So they have the same desires that we do. They have the same, they're aware the same way that we are, but they are struggling to figure out solutions themselves to reduce some of those complexities and figure out solutions that enable the product not to break during transit or things like that. So safety, security of the product needs to maintain whole, but they're looking for solutions to help solve issues. Why do we need to shrink wrap a whole pallet of beer to ship it? So we're working with our customers and our partners to figure out ways that we can either help within their supply chain in receiving goods and then transporting to their own stores, and also how we can do a better job of delivering to them. So it's a constant conversation back and forth, but I think we're all, as you say, swimming in the same direction and working on doing that. So that's one side. On the other, it's about continuing to drive awareness. So, and I was saying earlier, I was part of the problem in most of our country, and Canada, I think as a whole, we feel like it's not us that's contributing to it. So as consumers, we feel like this plastic bag here or a straw there or a 6-pack rings tomorrow isn't going to make a big difference, but it is, right? We as Canadians use 2 times our weight in plastic and dispose of that every single year. So we need to make sure that awareness is driven, and we have a microphone that we're trying to use as much as possible. So we've dedicated our summer this year to using the microphone to talk to Canadians, to let them know and to educate them around the fact that we're part of the problem and give them some of the tools to help clean up as well. So we've been leading some shoreline cleanups in partnership with you, Laura, and with Oceanwise and Great Canadian Shoreline Cleanup, and had some good success in doing that. Obviously, more to continue to do. But it's a platform that is rooted in the DNA of our brand. It's a brand where Corona was born on the beach. Everyone when you think about this beer, you think about having a Corona on the beach. And if the beach doesn't look as pristine as you imagine it does in your minds, then the brand's not going to have as much meaning to you. So we're going to continue on this journey for the foreseeable future, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think also really enjoyed working with your team on the shoreline cleanups and the installations to raise awareness about plastic pollution here in Canada, and particularly the reaction as well. And as you say, every piece of plastic that's recovered from our shoreline, it might not feel like much, but actually from a shoreline cleanup point of view, this is adding data to a national and international databases that are informing policies that are leading to real change in our society. And that for me is huge. I also loved the approach of using your platform and your microphone, as you put it, to continue to bring people with us on this journey to that radical reduction of plastic pollution. I think it's so important, and it's great to see brands with a reach like Corona taking the lead there. So Sophie, you were kind enough to share a lot of what's going on at MEC, and you know, the dumpster diving is totally staying with me. But what is next for you in the weeks, months, and years ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So I think when we talk about apparel, there's this huge elephant in the room always around waste. You can look at stats around how much textile waste is ending up in landfill. It's frightening. It truly is frightening. And I think, so yes, MEC has, they have a take back program. They will, when you're done with an item, please return it to MEC. We will handle it properly. We do have a process around repair, reuse, donate, and then recycle. But right now, recycle really means, it's ending up in insulation. It has a second purpose, but it's downcycled essentially, right? It is being reused, but it's not being reused into, another product that we can, not that we can sell, but, that has that same kind of higher level function, I would say. So there's two tiers I would look at. It's like, one is for those products that are coming back to us, we need to have we really need to shift, and there's some technology gaps right now, especially in Canada, to be able to repair and then resell those products. So re-commerce basically is one big, hill that I will die on. It also creates a secondary market for those that cannot enter at the initial price point, right? So if our mission as MEC is to get everyone active and outside, and that is built on the fact that's how MEC came about. But it's also, if we can get, the more people we can get active and outside, the more people we can get to love the environment. And that in turn creates this loop of people wanting to protect it. So firstly, it's how can we repair and reuse and resell these products and get them into second hands, right? Second lives, third lives, that sort of thing. And then for the products that we can't resell, we need to have technology in Canada to be able to recycle them, not recycle into something else, recycle back, closed loop into apparel again. Like, I cannot stress this enough. This is a system that we are fundamentally missing. And for the majority of companies, it's not downcycled into something else. It's getting donated, which then goes overseas and ends up in a landfill for someone else. So for MEC, this is something that I have really been pushing, and there's a ton of eagerness within the team to start working on this deeper, and really it starts with creating those partnerships and those collaborations. So right now we're in that process of looking at our stakeholders and trying to get involved where we can. I feel like the industry, the apparel industry, and just the broader industry in Canada has been talking about this for a long time, but we're really starting to see action, and we're trying to inject ourselves where we can. So that's one of the big pieces. And then what also is next is the other elephant, I like to say, is we have MEC Label, which is our in-house brand, and we do a ton from a sustainability perspective for them. And we do have requirements for our brand partners, but obviously we don't have as close of a hold on them. So this last year, we launched targets around sustainable materials and sustainable design for MEC label, but we also launched this for our brand partners as well. And one of the big asks, one of the big targets for brand partners is that they are responsible for the end of life of their products. So that doesn't mean that we won't take them back. We'll still take products back for our members, but we want to see these brands taking accountability for the products they're making so that they design them better and be finding solutions for these products as well. Because at the end of the day, if you're cued into, hey, this is going to be my responsibility at the end of life, you're going to start thinking about the design a lot more. And so yes, we on the one side, we are putting into our contracts and that sort of thing different sustainability attributes that we expect them to have. But at the end of the day, as a retailer, we have a responsibility and an opportunity to influence. So we have hundreds of brands that we're working with. So let's plant that seed, right? Let's get that going in motion. And then maybe they have learnings. Maybe they have amazing learnings that they come up with, and then they can share it with us and we can share it beyond, right? So we're looking at, walking the talk at home. What can we do? But also, how can we use our influence to change beyond ourselves as well? Kind of like what Becky was saying, we want to get this into the hands of as many people as possible. Same kind of concept. We want to be spreading the learnings that we have and spreading our influence as much as possible because this is not going to be solved with one person, I think, or one company or one government. So it's so critical that we collaborate and that we recognize where we can insert ourselves into supporting bigger.
Yeah, and I'm hearing some themes come through really strongly from all three of you actually about using your platforms to influence in a responsible way and encouraging your partners to do the same and really working with your partners to tackle those challenges. I think that is going to be fundamental to the future. It's something that we see a lot working with our partners at Oceanwise, is that it's not that there is an unwillingness to act, but it's how to act, when to act, where to act, and how to get the best advice at the time. And then empowering individuals. So I think that's really powerful. And I love that you're building it into your contracts at MEC, particularly around sort of sustainable materials and sustainable design. I think that'll be a huge leap forward and something that very keen to continue to watch and see how you get on. The other piece that you pulled out that I enjoyed was the equity piece around the secondary market. Particularly in apparel, that is something that comes up a lot, is the value and paying the true cost, and that then drives the price up, and then how is that accessible to the wider market. So thank you very much for sharing that, Sophie. I'm going to stick with you for a moment to save us bouncing around between screens. I hope that's all right. And pick your brains as to what you might wish other actors to do. What would your call to action be for other people in the industry, for policymakers, or even for the individual on the street? What would you be asking for?
Sorry, did you bounce that one back to me, Laura? Great.
Sorry,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I am actually going to bounce it to individuals. I think that there's a huge opportunity to speak with your dollar. And to, like I said, we all have enough stuff. So can we reuse, repair, thrift? I might not have the skills to fix something, but my grandmother does, and I use it shamelessly, for example. So, go to them. My husband's a mechanical engineer and he can fix anything. I go to him. Use your networks to be able to see if you can keep things in life longer. And ask yourself critically, do I need this? I don't know if any of you have seen the Shopaholics movie, but the woman's mantra is like, do I need this? And it's truly like I use that sometimes. Do I need this? No, okay, then don't buy it. And then I would say, you know, look at brands and ask, are these brands taking responsibility for the end of life of their products? If they're not, there is a reason. Full stop. They, you know, brands that aren't, it's because it's going to cost them too much because their products aren't going to be in life long enough. And so for me, that's a huge red flag. And I would say be okay with being a bit nosy. If someone asks you that or tells you that this is, you know, this is some great new sustainable thing, ask them why. Ask them, like, you know, I had a situation where I walked into a store, it was a pop-up in my neighborhood, and I said, oh, it's, you know, it's cool to see this place. She goes, oh yeah, everything in here is sustainable. She wished that I was not the person to walk into her store, I am sure. I asked, oh, that's so interesting. Why? And the answers I got, you know right away, this is false. This is greenwashing. So don't be afraid to ask, okay, and oh, so it's made with eucalyptus. So why is that better than cotton? Why is it better? Tell me the facts, right? It's okay to be a bit nosy, but I would question more and not be afraid to hold brands and companies accountable, because that actually makes my job easier. If you start doing that, then I can, you know, then my team is going, oh shoot, we need to do XYZ around this issue because we're getting a lot of conversation about it. So I encourage people to do that, and I truly, you know, think about when you're buying a product from a company, what do they stand for? What are they working on? And are they responsible for that product? Because if they're not, as I said, there's definitely a reason.
Thank you so much. I love that. I too have found myself saying many a time, just raise your voice because companies care, they listen, voting with your dollars matters. Mike, I'm going to throw it over to you. What do you wish other actors would do in this space? What's your call to action? Oh, we've got the mute problem. We are still muted. I'm just going to check. Does Mike have the power to unmute himself? Oh no, okay, whilst we get that technical hiccup fixed in the back end, I'm going to throw the same question to Becky.
Am I good? Can you hear me? Because yeah, I feel you, Mike. Mine is doing the same thing where I press unmute and it's just like freezing. Okay, so in terms of policy change, I mean, this is a tough one. What comes to mind for me really that was most, I think, challenging for us was just access to good programs that were going to provide us capital or funding to be able to innovate in the way that we wanted to innovate. I think more attention towards this from government bodies, governing bodies would be amazing. I think so many people out there have so many great ideas surrounding sustainability and their businesses, but quite simply, it takes the capital, it takes money. We have to put money towards these types of problems to be able to solve them. So giving businesses easy access to more capital, more money to act on the ideas that they have would be my suggestion for sure. And then to companies, if we want to say, you know, if you have a business, let's say, just take a look at what your opportunities actually are. For us, we saw this opportunity of creating circularity kind of right from the beginning because we were a subscription-based service. So leverage those types of things. See what your opportunities are and really, really try to leverage them. And I always say, like, think big, but start small. So if you have big ideas, that's great, but it takes really small steps, just a lot of them, to achieve your big ideas. So I hope that helps.
I am scribbling that one down as a soundbite. Think big, but start small. I think that's a mantra that we can all take into our day-to-day lives. I really appreciate that, as well as the access to finance and capital. We have lost Mike, but we are also in the dying 10 minutes, and I'm very, very conscious that I really want to end by asking you both, what gives you hope? Like we've had a lot of the doom and gloom, and you guys have been great at certainly inspiring me and buoying me up with the changes that you've made to date. But maybe starting with Becky, what is giving you hope right now in the battle against plastic pollution?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, I mean, for me particularly, what gives me hope is, we're a very rapidly growing company right now, and we were chatting about this before the session started, but what really gives me hope is every time I'm in an interview, without fail, what comes out when I ask the question, why do you want to work at Fresh Prep? Why do you want to join our company? Without fail, what comes out, is I love the mission. I love the vision. I love the mission. I want to contribute to solving these problems. And that gives me hope. Like, just if you put out your vision into the world, and people are inspired to join you, and just seeing how many people, I guess, have been inspired to join, not only Fresh Prep, but I know all of these other companies. Like, I know a lot of folks that join MEC for the same reason, right? They're really aligned with the vision and they really want to make a difference. So that's what gives me hope. That's what keeps me inspired. At the end of the day, these are really complex systems we've created, and these are really challenging problems to solve. But with, humanity made it to the moon. So if we can make it to the moon, we can definitely solve the plastics problem. It just takes attention and focus. So that's what gives me hope and keeps me inspired.
Oh, what a way to wrap up. Thank you, Becky. Mike, I've got to throw it over to you and see what you want individuals and other actors to be doing, and what gives you hope whilst we're at it.
Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, I'm back. Apologies. It's like a year and a half of this virtual world, and it still just can't make it work. So yeah, I think here we have to acknowledge that it's difficult to get the average person to really make dramatic change, and so we have to make it easy for them. And I think where we've had some success, or at least personally have had success, is asking people to do small things, starting small. So make a pledge to do one thing differently. And the first pledge I took was I'm not going to use single-use plastic water bottles anymore. I'm going to start carrying around a reusable water bottle, or I'm going to be drinking my water out of a glass. And that just became ingrained in my behavior really, really quickly. So ask your friends, your family, to do little things like that. Stop using plastic grocery bags at the grocery store. Stop using straws. Like, just simple things that really don't have a huge impact on your lives, are easy to implement, make you think about the problem, and then spark that progress. Because once you start doing one thing, it's easier to do another, and start having conversations with other people and so on. So I think for us, and I know this audience is one that's passionate about this problem, so important for us to acknowledge that we got to make it easy to bring others into this, make it tangible, make it practical. So that's the biggest piece.
It's as if by magic that we actually have a pledge that people can take to reduce their plastic, and they can even do an at-home audit with us. But all joking aside, thank you, Mike. What also, may I ask, is giving you hope in the battle against plastic pollution?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually when I think about it, our consumers are holding us accountable more than ever before. They're looking for brands now that share the same values that they do, brands that have purpose, and brands that are working to make a difference in their lives and make the world a better place. So I think consumers are holding us accountable, and that's going to drive business change, which is fantastic. But the other is actually employees. So if I look at Gen Z, now we can't pass the buck on to the next generation and say, hey, you're going to solve the problem. No. But they're holding us accountable, and they're forcing us. When I'm, talking to kids at schools and universities, we're recruiting. They're asking these questions, and we better be thinking about the same things that they are if they want to choose us as a place to work. And the best talent is considering these. So I think looking at the future of our consumer and of our employees, that is going to force the issue at hand. And that gives me a lot of hope.
I love that, and what's reassuring for me is that you guys are listening. So no, that's giving me a lot of hope. So final thoughts, Sophie, what is giving you hope?
Yeah, I think it echoes what everyone here has said already, but that people are listening even today, that, you know, there's a platform for this kind of a conversation to take place, and that people want to know what brands are up to and how they can make a difference as well. I think that, you know, it's inspiring to know that it's not just like that there's so many people that are wanting to create change, right? And because I think it does really start with you and demanding more, right, from government, companies, your peers. Yeah, and I think to echo what Mike was saying, sometimes this, you know, the challenges that we're facing in the world can be overwhelming, but really, you know, yeah, start small, start asking questions here and there, make small changes in your lifestyle. It'll snowball no matter what. I think that, you know, I started with, okay, how can I reduce plastics in my shower? Simple. And then it was like, oh, I'll try out a shampoo bar. You know, I think that there are a lot of solutions coming forward that we can lean on, and just that the demand is growing so rapidly is really exciting to see. And of course, like I've said, but you know, I'm happy to answer any questions for people around this space as well, because sometimes it is overwhelming. And I think one thing that is really neat about the sustainability, you know, what's the word, like environment people in it, like, you know, our cohort of sustainability like-minded folks, is that we are really happy to connect and to, you know, support each other on where we can make change as well, because we can't do it alone. So I think that's like the network of people is also really inspiring, that want to help each other.
What a way to close us out. I am very, very sorry to everybody on the line. We have run out of time for Q&A, but I could talk to Sophie, Mike, and Becky all day. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to share your successes and how you are tackling the challenge of plastic pollution in your organizations. I think for me personally, it makes such a difference to hear what you're doing behind the scenes to continue to inspire me to take action in my daily life. I hope the people on the line feel likewise. If you do have any questions that you haven't been able to ask, or any that strike you later in your day, please don't hesitate to send us an email at Oceanwise, and we will endeavor to field these, and we'll tap on the shoulders of the guys that have presented today to help us answer them as well if they're specific to those organizations. But in closing, we've really heard a lot today, but I think we are all united in saying that it starts with small actions. And you have a lot of individual power and agency, not only to raise your voice, but to influence the people around you, the businesses that you interact with, and the policymakers. So don't be shy. And as I said, any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. And with that, I will thank the panel very, very much. Sophie Merritt, Mike Bascom, and Becky Brauer.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much. That was lovely.
Thanks very much.